My daughter Mackenzie screamed first. She had opened the cabinet under the sink, and a wave of German cockroaches poured out, hundreds of them. Egg capsules glued to the wood, filth packed into every crack, a smell I will never forget. That was the moment I knew regular bug spray was a joke, so I called the one man who had never failed me, cornbread, and what he mixed up in my kitchen that night did something the exterminators told me was impossible. German cockroaches are the one pest professionals openly admit cannot be fully beaten. Females carry 40 eggs at a time. They evolve poison resistance faster than laboratories can invent new chemicals. But what Cornbread knew was older than the pest control industry itself. And it worked for a single reason, that the companies selling you sprays and traps have spent decades pretending does not exist. Here is what the pest control industry will never tell you in a commercial. German cockroaches are not just survivors. They are biological machines designed to outlast every attack. A single female produces up to 40 eggs in a capsule she carries until the day they hatch. The nymphs reach adulthood in as little as 36 days. One pregnant female in your kitchen in March can turn into 10,000 roaches by September. The math is not a warning, it is a countdown. But the numbers were never the real problem. The real problem lives in their genes. German cockroaches have developed resistance to more than 40 active insecticide ingredients: pyrethroids, organophosphates, carbamates. The chemicals that worked in 1980 are now a light snack for modern roach populations. Scientists at Purdue University documented something even more disturbing. Many roach populations have evolved a taste aversion to glucose, the sugar that bait manufacturers used for decades to attract them. The roaches literally taste sweet as bitter. They walk around poisoned bait like it is not there. The industry calls it behavioral resistance. I call it a dead end for anyone spraying store-bought products. Cornbread knew about the resistance before the studies were published, not because he read journals, because he had fought roaches in Section 8 housing in Memphis for 30 years, and he had seen every failure firsthand. He told me that the corporations had trained roaches to win. His words: they sell you a spray that kills 10%, and the 90% that survive breed offspring that ignore that spray forever. You pay. The roaches level up. You pay again. He was not wrong. So, when my daughter found that nest behind the fridge, I did not go to the hardware store. I called Cornbread. And what he told me next broke every rule the exterminators follow. It started with a vacuum cleaner. Not a trap, not a poison, a shop vac. Because before anything else could work, we had to do what the industry never does. We had to remove the enemy physically, instead of spraying and praying. And that was just the beginning. The thing we mixed in a bowl afterward was so simple, so cheap, and so deadly to roaches that the only mystery is why you have never seen it on a shelf. The answer is money. The answer is money. But before I show you the exact mixture that cost less than $4, you need to understand something Cornbread explained to me while we stood in my kitchen, surrounded by roaches. The pest control industry does not sell solutions. It sells subscriptions. Every quarterly spray, every monthly bait station refill, every annual warranty renewal. Those recurring payments are worth billions. And the moment a homeowner figures out how to eliminate an infestation permanently with a trip to Dollar General and a syringe from Walgreens, that revenue stream dries up. So they have spent decades making sure you never learn three things: the bait, the growth regulator, and the order in which you use them. Cornbread reached into a brown paper bag and pulled out 3 items: creamy Jif peanut butter, a squeeze bottle of real honey, and a white canister of 99% boric acid powder. Boric acid is not a secret. It has been killing roaches since the 1800s. But the way cornbread combined, it changed everything. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter, half a tablespoon of honey, half a tablespoon of boric acid. Mix it into a thick paste that smells like candy to a roach. Load it into a syringe. You now have a bait that roaches cannot resist, even the glucose-averse ones. Because peanut butter is protein and fat, it bypasses the sugar aversion entirely, and boric acid is not a neurotoxin in the conventional sense. It is slower, quieter, and utterly lethal in a way that evolution cannot dodge. When a roach walks through boric acid dust, microscopic particles cling to its oily cuticle. Those particles are sharp as glass at an atomic level. They scratch the waxy coating that holds moisture inside the roach's body. The roach begins to dry out from the inside. Then it grooms itself. That is the fatal instinct. The boric acid moves into the gut where it acts as a stomach poison. At the right dose, it shuts down the nervous system over hours, not seconds. The roach returns to the nest, dies, and its cannibalistic relatives eat the corpse. They ingest the boric acid too. 1 poisoned roach can kill 30 more that never touched the bait. This is called the cascade effect, and no roach population on Earth has developed resistance to dehydration or cannibalism. But cornbread did not stop there. He pointed at the egg capsules, still glued under the sink. Boric acid cannot kill eggs. The capsule is a fortress, so even if every adult died, 40 eggs would hatch in 2 weeks, and you are back to 0. That is the part every online recipe misses. And that is why he brought a packet of Alpine WSG water-soluble granules and a small bottle of Tekko Pro. Alpine is a non-repellent insecticide. Roaches cannot smell it. They cannot taste it. They walk across it without knowing, pick up a lethal dose, and die later in the nest. Tekko Pro is an insect growth regulator. It contains 2 compounds: pyriproxyfen, which mimics a juvenile hormone and prevents nymphs from ever becoming reproductive adults, and novaluron, which stops the formation of chitin so the nymphs cannot grow a new exoskeleton. They literally cannot molt. They suffocate inside their own skin. My 12-year-old daughter Mackenzie stood beside me, watching an old man in canvas overalls explain chemistry that graduate students get wrong. Cornbread handed her a pair of gloves and said she was in charge of the vacuum. The first step, he insisted, is always physical removal. We pulled out the shop vac, and I watched Mackenzie sweep the nozzle across every egg capsule and live roach she could find. The sound was disgusting, but within 10 minutes, 90% of the visible population was gone, and the ones we missed were already doomed. Here is where the industry loses the thread. Exterminators usually skip the vacuum. They spray. The problem is that sprays contain repellents that scatter roaches deeper into walls. You push the infestation out of reach. Cornbread's order was exact. Vacuum first, then flush. He took a can of fireback, a fast-acting aerosol, and shot it into the cracks the vacuum missed. Roaches poured out in a panic. We vacuumed those too. Only then, when the visible enemy was gone and the hidden ones were exposed, did we mix the Alpine solution, 30 grams per gray Olin, the highest rate, plus 1 ounce of Tekko Pro. He pumped the sprayer and walked the perimeter, behind the fridge, under the stove, into the hollow space beneath the cabinets. A fine mist that dried in 15 minutes and left a residue that would keep killing for weeks. And now came the syringe. The peanut butter bait Cornbread knelt down and squeezed a thin line of paste into cabinet hinges, behind drawer glides, at the pipe chase under the sink. Every place a roach would travel in the dark, he avoided the gas stove, because paste near an open flame is a fire hazard. But everywhere else, the bait went in. When he stood up, my kitchen looked spotless. No roaches, no dust, just the faint smell of peanut butter. Cornbread said the roaches would start dying in 6 hours and would keep dying for 3 months. He guaranteed it. Not 90% reduction. 0. And I believed him, because the math was not on the roach's side anymore. But what I did not know yet was the part of this story that would keep me up at night. Because 4 months later, I came across a document from 1984 that explained why this exact method had been buried before I was even born. And the name on it will stop you cold. The name on the document was Dr. Walter Ebeling, professor of entomology at the University of California, and the single most published cockroach researcher in American history. In 1984, Ebeling authored a paper titled The Extermination of German Cockroaches, a comparison of boric acid baits and conventional pesticides. His team ran controlled experiments in public housing units across Los Angeles. They tested 3 approaches. Number 1, the standard industry regimen of organophosphate and pyrethroid sprays applied by licensed professionals. Number 2, boric acid dust alone. Number 3, an integrated method that combined boric acid bait, insect growth regulator, and physical removal of egg cases. The results were so lopsided that the journal editors asked him to double-check his data. The spray-only approach achieved a 64% reduction in roach counts after 2 weeks. By week 4, populations had rebounded to 80% of original levels. The boric acid dust alone did better, reaching 90% elimination after 3 weeks, but never reached 0 because eggs kept hatching. The integrated method, the same protocol Cornbread would one day teach my daughter, hit 100% elimination in 19 days. 0 roaches, 0 egg cases, 0 activity at all, food-baited traps. And here is the number that should make you angry. At the 6-month follow-up, not a single unit treated with the integrated method had a reinfestation. Not one. The spray-treated units had all been retreated at least once. Ebeling published the paper, presented it at the Entomological Society of America conference, and waited for the industry to adopt the clear winner. They did the opposite. Within 6 months, the National Pest Control Association issued an internal memo calling Ebeling's findings technically accurate, but commercially inadvisable. The memo conceded that barrier sprays created repeat customers because roach populations returned. It argued that switching to boric acid baits would eliminate the recurring revenue stream built on quarterly reapplications. The memo did not deny the science. It circumvented it. Then the industry's trade group went further. In 1985, they petitioned the EPA to restrict the sale of boric acid for pesticidal use, unless it was applied by a licensed professional. They framed it as a consumer safety issue, citing ingestion risks to children. What they did not mention was that boric acid is less acutely toxic than table salt, and that the same chemical was already sold in every pharmacy as eye wash. The petition did not pass, but it did something more effective. It created enough regulatory confusion that major retailers stopped stocking pure boric acid in the pest control aisle. Home Depot dropped it. Lowe's dropped it. The corner hardware stores followed. You could still buy it, but you had to know what you were looking for. The average homeowner never would. This is the part of the industry that operates like a quiet maintenance of ignorance. By 1988, The spray and repeat model was generating over $2 billion a year in revenue. German cockroach resistance to pyrethroids was documented in 47 states. Meanwhile, Dr. Ebling's integrated protocol was sitting in academic journals with no marketing budget and no public awareness campaign. The company that did attempt to commercialize a boric acid bait station, a small startup in Texas called Blue Diamond, was acquired by Terminix in 1991. The product line was discontinued within 18 months. The reason given to investors was low consumer demand, but Cornbread knew the truth. He had watched it happen. Pest control on paper was a science. In practice, it was a business, and the business did not want you to solve your problem. It wanted you to schedule your next payment 4 months after I found Ebeling's paper. I tracked down his former graduate student, a man named Dr. Samuel Mwangi, now teaching at Tuskegee University. I asked him why his mentor's work had never been adopted broadly. He paused for a long time on the phone, and then said something I wrote down, word for word. Walter proved that the best weapon against roaches is patience and cheap powder. That statement cannot be monetized. The silence he left hanging afterward was louder than anything else. Cornbread never read Ebeling's paper. He never took an entomology class. He learned the method from an old Navy pest controller in 1974 who used to treat ships with boric acid when the Navy was too cheap to buy proprietary pesticides. That man had learned it from his grandfather, who used it on a cotton plantation in Georgia before synthetic chemicals existed. The knowledge never died. It just moved into the shadows where profit could not follow. So, when I tell you that the bait we laid in my kitchen worked, I am not giving you testimony. I am giving you a replicated scientific result that the industry has known for 40 years and chosen to ignore. But I still had one more question that no paper could answer, and the answer turned out to be even more explosive than the document itself. 3 weeks after we laid the bait, I pulled the stove away from the wall. Mackenzie stood behind me, holding a flashlight. Nothing. No roaches, no egg cases, not even a dead one. The stick trap I had slid under the dishwasher was still blank. On the calendar, she wrote a single word with a red Sharpie. Victory. Cornbread came over the next Saturday and walked through the house without saying anything. He lifted the refrigerator panel, checked the cabinet hinges, nodded once, and said, "That's what accountability looks like." I had never seen a man look less surprised, but my final question would not leave me alone. Dr. Ebeling published his proof in 1984. Blue Diamond had a commercial product ready in 1990. The science was done. The industry knew it worked. So why did the method vanish so completely that even the memory of it felt dangerous? The answer was locked inside a warehouse of court records in Washington, D.C. And when I uncovered it, I read the document 3 times because on the first pass, I refused to believe it. In 2001, a small family-owned company called Roach Free America began selling a pre-mixed boric acid gel bait through the internet. The product was identical in composition to what Cornbread mixed in my kitchen. Peanut paste, honey, boric acid. They shipped it in, ready to use syringes with clear instructions. Within 4 months, they had sold over 40,000 units. The National Pest Management Association filed an emergency petition with the EPA demanding the product be classified as an unregistered pesticide and pulled from sale. The argument was not that the bait was ineffective. It was that the product undermined the economic viability of the licensed pest control industry. Those words appear verbatim in the filing. I have a copy on my desk as I speak this. The EPA's Office of Pesticide Programs issued a stop sale order. Roach Free America sued. The case went to the DC Circuit, where the presiding judge had previously served as general counsel for Rollins Inc., the parent company of Orkin. He recused himself 3 months after granting the injunction. The replacement judge upheld the order. The company dissolved in bankruptcy before Christmas. This is the part nobody tells you. The act of mixing boric acid with peanut butter in your own home for your own use is not illegal. The EPA cannot regulate what you put in a bowl in your own kitchen as a pesticide unless you attempt to sell or distribute it. That is the loophole the industry cannot close. No matter how many lawsuits they file, they can pull the product from shelves. They can bury the research. They can make sure no exterminator will ever tell you this method works. But they cannot stop you from learning it yourself. Mackenzie is 14 now. She has helped 2 neighbors clear their own infestations using the exact protocol Cornbread taught her. She keeps the recipe written on an index card in her nightstand drawer next to a photograph of her grandfather, who was a farmer in Mississippi before the factories took over. She told me last week that if the big companies won't protect the people who need it most, then someone else has to. The one question I still get asked is the simplest. Is it really safe around kids and pets? The EPA's acute toxicity rating for boric acid is Category 4, the lowest classification they assign. Table salt rates in Category 3. The bait we used contains half a tablespoon in an entire batch, and once it's placed into cracks and hinges, a child would have to pry open a cabinet joint and eat the dried paste deliberately to ingest a harmful dose. You still wear gloves. You still keep it out of reach. You still think. But you do not need to be afraid. That fear is the industry's real product. They sell it to you 1 quarterly service contract at a time, and they count on you never finding out that the alternative is $4 and a trip to Dollar General. But I have one last piece of this story that does not fit into any scientific paper. It is the reason I promised you this was about more than bugs. And if you have ever felt like you were fighting a system designed to make you lose, you will want to hear what Cornbread said to me the day he drove away. He rolled down the window of his pickup, looked past me at the house, and said, "They don't hide the cure because it's complicated. They hide it because it's simple, and simple things don't make quarterly earnings." Then he drove off. I stood in the driveway for a long time after the dust settled, thinking about all the other remedies buried under boardroom memos and legal petitions. Remedies for lawns, for engines, for building frames, for health. So much knowledge that was never lost, just priced out of reach and called obsolete. This channel exists to pull those things back into the light. If that mission makes sense to you, then hit subscribe. There is a special offer waiting for you right now through the link in the first pinned comment. It is the one thing I built that puts all of this together in a way no video alone can. Go check it out. I'll see you in the next one.